From the WatchBox Studios, this is On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy.
Good morning. Welcome to On Point on WatchBox. It's a pleasure every week to bring you this show, and we do hope that you will take the opportunity, take us up on our invitation to tune into the radio talk show On Point with Cynthia Hardy, heard every Sunday evening, 6 p.m. on 101.3 The Big DM. Today on Point on Watch, we are talking about Governor Nikki Haley's poor approval rating and issues related to those numbers. Less than a year after taking office, Governor Nikki Haley's approval rating is plummeting, even among members of her own political party. A new Winthrop University poll shows only 34.6% of those surveyed approve of Governor Haley's job performance. Even more, 43% say they disapprove of the way the governor is performing. In September, less than 6 months ago, a Winthrop poll showed 69% of voters surveyed actually approved of the job that she was doing. So today on Point on Watch, we're asking the question, what's going on with Governor Nikki Haley's poor showing in the polls? What's behind the decline in her approval rating? I am seated with Brian McConkie. And Brian, it's a delight to be with you every week. And this is a topic that really has a lot of people talking out there.
Sure, because you see that just precipitous drop in about a 6-month period where it's
Sure.
near 70% approval and just bam, straight down. There's a lot of things that have played into that. The timing of the poll. You talk to some political experts that say around the time that poll was taken, there was a lot of negative press surrounding the governor that could have played into that. But there's been a lot of those issues that have been on the forefront. The voter ID battle, the battle over the ports, so many things that have been out there. And many of those were really hot and heavy around the time that poll was taken. But we'll talk about some of these issues.
And in fact, Brian, you know, she takes it on the chin for a number of those things that you mentioned, but, you know, she also points to 19,000 new jobs, you know, that she's helped to create, and lots of other businesses that have come into the state. We thought we would ask some of the political insiders about Governor Nikki Haley's performance. We do want to mention from the onset, we did reach out and we're not able to get her on the set with us, but we do have Jim Felder with the South Carolina Voter Education Project. Thank you. And Phil Bailey, who is here with Pub Politics, a Democrat, and we thank you both for being here. And we'll have the Republican perspective later on in the show. Do want to start off by saying that we want to talk about the governor's negative numbers and the fact that the numbers are dropping. You say what to that, Phil? Where'd it come from?
Well, I mean, you had a governor with that barely got above 50% in a very conservative state in a wave election year, and she really has not taken off from there. And then it's just nothing to go but down for her, and these numbers are reflecting it.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of promise there. People actually talk about Nikki Haley favorably across the country, even when they talk about candidates for a vice president position coming up in 2012. And I think her name is still being mentioned there, but here at home, her numbers are not so good.
Well, that's reflective of where her attention is. It's focused on national politics and improving her national profile. And, you know, she's forgot about home. And
is it surprising to you that we invite and we're not able to get her on the set?
It doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, that if you were Fox News or CNN or a national outlet, she'd be breaking her ankles to get on your program. But she's forgotten about home. And these numbers at 35% favorability, lower than President Obama's numbers here in South Carolina, are reflecting a strategy of just ignoring South Carolina.
I got another question before I pitch to Brian, and this one's for you, Jim. As you look at the issues impacting the governor, there are a number of issues that people point to. They point to the battle over the ports. They point to the governor's position on stimulus. But one of the big ones is the way that the governor has behaved and reacted around issues of voting and voter photo ID, and now this new group effort, this bill that's out that is intended to limit groups that can register people to vote.
Obviously, the governor does not know the history of the state and why we're under the Voting Rights Act. If she did, she would not have supported this voter ID matter. Now here we are, going to have to spend $1.5 million of taxpayer money to appeal this matter. And that didn't have to happen. The governor maybe just does not know the history of the state.
What makes you say she doesn't know the history?
Apparently she doesn't. If she does not know that South Carolina is under the Voting Rights Act because of these kinds of things that happened in the past.
So you're saying the Justice Department's halt to our voter ID bill is directly tied to the state's history?
Directly tied, and that's why South Carolina and many of the other southern states are still under it. Yet they say, well, release us from this Voting Rights Act. But if you're not doing things to get released. If you come up with a voter ID bill, now there's a second matter of stymieing third-party groups to get people registered to vote. That's how it used to be. That's what we got away from. Now she wants to go back to that.
Yeah, Phil, while we're talking about the voting issues, we thought voter ID was dead. The feds have blocked that from being put into place, but yet we still see it coming up over and over again in one form or another, like we're talking about this new bill here. You would think that the reason that keeps coming up is it plays into the red meat issues that the base goes for. But if the approval ratings don't seem to reflect it, that strategy is working.
Well, what you see is that this is part of an effort that's going all across the country. Republicans know when voter turnout is down, they are successful. When they know that when more people vote, Democrats are successful. This is an effort all across the country to suppress the vote, to keep voter turnout down.
Mr. Felder.
Look at the last 2 election cycles. In 2008, it was 76% turnout in South Carolina. 2010, only 51% turnout. That was all right. Nikki Haley got elected on that low turnout. So what we do to suppress the vote, we come up with these other gadgets to do it, and that's where we are now.
Really? So you just feel like this is another effort to suppress?
It is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, as Governor Haley, there's been rumors that are out there right now that say we're not sure she's going to seek a second term. What are you guys hearing about that?
I'm hearing that.
What are you hearing, Phil?
I'll believe it when I see it from Governor Haley. I mean, she has a long track record of saying one thing and doing another.
My goodness. I feel bad. You guys are beating up on the governor. I got to get Wes over here.
He'll be over here soon.
Wes Donahue is here to represent the Republican side of things, and he does a really good job at doing that. And so I'm going to save that response for him.
Equal time.
Equal time. Mr. Felder, if you would wrap up this segment for us.
Well, the governor needs to pick her fights a little better than she's doing it now. With all the other issues we're having to deal with, you would think that we would want to increase political participation by the people in the state as opposed to depressing it. And that's what she's doing. She needs to leave that issue alone and move on to the other things that she claims that she's doing so great with.
I think we're going to end the segment with that. Thank you, Mr. Felder, for being here with us. We got to get the Republican representative on the set real soon. So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about Governor Nikki Haley's poor approval rating and issues related to those numbers. Brian and I will be back.
From the WatchBox studios, this is On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy.
Welcome back to On Point on WatchBox. Brian and I are talking about Governor Nikki Haley's poor approval rating and issues related to those numbers. You know, Brian, less than a year ago, she was riding pretty high.
Absolutely, especially when she first came into office, just a darling of the national Tea Party movement.
Certainly.
But the criticism now is that locally, maybe she's not as engaged as she should be, and that's why approval ratings here at home aren't doing so hot.
Well, you know, she's had some successes, you know, because we see a lot of business announcements, a lot of businesses coming into the state.
There have been a lot of job announcements. We can't dispute that at all.
That's right. But there have been some other controversial issues.
Sure.
And so we're going to continue our conversation. We kept Phil Bailey on the set and added Wes Donahue. I know you were chomping at the bit over there to get on in there and kind of talk about some of this. And we have asked you, of course, to represent the Republican side of things. And so when we talk about Governor Haley and we ask the question, is she going to run again? Because there are rumors out there that say maybe not. And when we look at these numbers, they're pretty low. And so you wonder if they're going to go back up, because at this point they seem to be really sinking.
This is like asking, is President Obama going to run again? Look at his approval numbers. They suck. We see $4 a gallon gasoline coming up. And we're asking, is Nikki Haley going to run again? But we're not asking the same about the president. These numbers are not that bad. South Carolina's not in a great place. The country's not in a great place. People naturally blame their leaders. So the numbers are going to go down a little bit. But these numbers are nowhere near the level where we should be asking, is Nikki Haley going to run again? She's going to run again and she's going to win.
Okay, let me ask you this. 70% approval rating, that's real strong. Less than 35%, that's real poor. And that's where we are right now. So it's hard to deny those numbers. You may say they don't mean what we interpret them to mean, but the numbers are the numbers, Wes.
I'm not saying that the numbers hadn't dropped, okay? I know they've dropped. I mean, South Carolina, like I said, is not in a good place. They're going to blame the governor. They're going to blame the legislature too, but these are not horrible numbers. These are pretty good to average numbers. These aren't, oh my God, she's going to lose numbers.
Okay, Phil?
Well, these are numbers that show that there's a strong possibility that she could face a primary when she's up for re-election from the right. You know, when Brian introduced this segment, he talked about the Tea Party base, and I think they're leaving her right now, and they're looking for another candidate.
Tea Party base, and that's Wes. That is an issue. Now, you know, the Tea Party has had their influence on the Republican Party that hadn't always been good, right?
I think the Tea Party's starting to disband a little bit. I think what happened is it was a natural base of supporters that were just angry, and I think what's happened is you've had people try to jump up and take leadership roles, and I think that base is starting to fall apart a little bit. But I think she's fine with the Tea Partiers. I disagree with Phil.
We talked a little bit about jobs too in the intro too. The announcements are there. There are some people who dispute the overall numbers and the thousands of jobs that are coming, but are we moving in the right direction where people will start maybe having some more faith in what's going on with our economy? Phil, I'll let you start with that.
The economy nationally is improving, and it's going to have an effect here in South Carolina. I think the numbers that you're seeing that being announced by the Haley administration are leftovers from Mark Sanford's efforts in his final year. Folks remember once Mark Sanford, after the Argentina affair, really decided to focus on actually being a governor and went out and recruited jobs, and we're starting to see that pay off in the numbers today.
Yeah, but yet all the improving economy is the Obama administration successes, and none of it's trickled down or left over from the Bush administration. I mean, this is hogwash. I mean, you're just complaining on this show and on Watch Fox about Mark Sanford. You did it forever, but now, Mark Sanford, he was a great governor. He created all these jobs, and Nikki Haley, she's just getting the leftovers. Come on, nobody believes that rhetoric from you guys.
23 straight months of job growth from the Obama administration. That's something to be proud of.
But it was him. It wasn't Bush.
And that's another show, you guys. Now let's talk about
we got plenty of shows there.
Yeah, the thing that I do want to mention is that while Nikki Haley has had a lot of successes, I want to ask you guys what you think about her position on accepting the stimulus money. Has that hurt her? Has the position on the voter photo ID bill, has that hurt her? Has her position on the ports, all that stuff, has that hurt her? And even casinos. I mean, to the point where people are looking and wondering which direction she's going in. I'll start with you, Phil.
I think it's a steady drip, and it's adding up right now. Like you said, from the selling out of the Port of Charleston to the Port of Savannah, that's a big issue. 250,000 jobs are tied to that port across South Carolina are now in jeopardy. The voter ID issue, this banning of the casino, or just saying no to a potential casino in the Low Country, which would bring thousands and thousands of jobs. It's just adding up, and the numbers show that.
You got to take these one by one. I mean, listen, the port issue, I think that stung a little bit. I hadn't even heard anything on the casino issue. I think the stimulus actually helped her. And I don't remember what the fourth one was you said. But listen, I think that she was the dog that caught the car. She got in there. She took some time to get her feet wet, to learn the ropes. She's got a young staff. They're more of a campaign staff than they were an actual official staff. I think they're trying to figure it out. And I think they've had a lot of successes, but they have had some communication errors that have really stung her. But I think she's had a great couple years, and I think she's going to really finish this term out strong.
To follow up on what you said there, is it a mistake to have some of this, I guess, quote unquote, on the job training in the chief executive of the state's office? Like you said, some of these folks there don't have the experience in that realm.
That's a good question.
I think electing Nikki Haley in the primary and in November was a referendum for the voters saying we want new blood. They wanted a clean slate, really, and I think that's what she did with both her staff and her administration. Now, I might not always agree with some of the things they've done. I think it has been painful. They've had some errors, but that's what the people said they wanted. They wanted a clean slate.
Go ahead.
And the errors have been absolutely colossal. I mean, the Savannah Port deal is just was the worst thing to happen, I think, to the state and probably a generation, economic-wise.
We're going to let that be the final word. Thank you, Wes Donahue. Thank you, Phil Bailey. Pub Politics. Want people to pay attention to that. You guys do a really, really good job.
Fun stuff.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Democrat Mia Butler Garrett, who is serving in the State House, and she'll give us her take on today's issue.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
Welcome back to On Point on WatchBox. Brian McConkie and I are talking about Governor Nikki Haley's approval rating and why those numbers seem to be dropping less than a year after taking office. Governor Nikki Haley's approval ratings are plummeting, even among members of her own political party. So we're asking what's behind the decline in those approval ratings and what has occurred over the last 6 months. And many people, Brian, point to issues like voter photo ID, immigration, the issue with the ports, and a number of other reasons that voters have perhaps gotten turned off.
And 6 months ago, the approval ratings were near 70%.
That's right,
according to
way
Winthrop
high.
poll, and then the most recent one shows 34.5%
Right.
or so. So that's a big drop off.
Huge drop. So we asked Wes Donahue to stay with us. He is our Republican voice on the show today, and Mia Butler Garrett has joined us. Thank you very much, Representative, for joining us today. When we talk about the governor's approval rating and the fact that they are dropping, what's your take on why that is?
Well, I think, the issues that we've been dealing with that we probably should not be dealing with at this point, as you said, voter ID. We've definitely been dealing with the ports and economic development, infrastructure, public education. I think it was interesting that in her State of the State address, she never mentioned public education once. That's got to be historic for the state.
A lot of people mention the fact that she did not mention public education at all. What do you think the reason is for that, Representative?
Well, I just think it's a sad commentary on our state that we are in this, during these economic times and with public education in need of so much. We've been through severe budget cuts, and it's just ironic. I think it's very telling that neither the governor mentioned it in her State of the State, and we've got a superintendent of education that is not, has been very disappointing to me in terms of his support of public education as well.
And that's been a criticism that I've heard over and over again. You say what, Mr. Donahue?
Among the Republicans right now, we hear a lot of Republicans saying, oh, you're not talking about social issues a lot. And I always say, well, listen, the social issues are dependent upon our economic issues. When the times are good, we don't have to worry about as bad drug use and crime rates and teen pregnancies and such. And I'll say the same thing about education. Education is completely dependent upon our economy. Like you said, education, the schools have severe budget cuts, laying off teachers, laying off administrators. And our education system is going to be better when the economy is fixed. You got to tackle that first hurdle before you can get to the second. I think we got to fix the economy, and that will fix education. And I think the governor knows that.
Part of the reason that a number of people point to when that argument is made is that we did not take the stimulus money.
Right. I mean, how can we fix the economy? We can't really fix the economy right now, but how can we begin to improve public education and strengthen it if we refuse federal money? We're not refusing it for Medicaid, we're not refusing it for Department of Transportation, for our roads and highways. So why would we sacrifice the needs of our children?
It's hard for me to argue this one because I'm actually on your side on this one, because I believe, and here's why. That's our tax dollars going to Washington. If we don't take it, someone else will. But I do appreciate that the governor and Mark Sanford they stood firm on this issue. They believe nobody should take this money. It's like Jim DeMint with the earmarks. If we take it, we're just setting an example for everybody else. It's kind of a chicken or the egg approach. Do we take our money or do we stand firm? I mean, which one has to come first? And I at least appreciate that they stood firm.
I wonder how much of it is making a point on principle, because it's on some level, I hear Wes's point, but on some level, people are hurting. And so it seems as if caring, compassionate leadership would weigh that.
Well, I remember when Governor Sanford took a stand on this issue in accepting dollars, it was about the fact that if we take it now, some of these programs that will be instituted as a result of taking these dollars still have to carry through when those dollars go away.
Oh, I see.
I know that was part of it. I don't know if that's still part of it to this day, but I remember that part of the argument. I'm sure you do too, Wes.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think he was right on that. But this is a tough fight, because what do you do? I mean, if everybody stood firm with Nikki Haley and Mark Sanford's commitment, then we wouldn't have these spending problems. But if everybody's saying gimme, 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 the entire country is going to be in a mess. But like I said, I actually do fall down on your side on this one. But at least I understand what they were saying.
Yeah, you have the last word.
Well, we hear a lot of talk about strings and not accepting money because there are strings attached. But I see those strings as accountability. And for us, that's a great thing. I thought we were trying to be about transparency and accountability, and here we are, sacrificing the needs of our kids and the future of our state when we don't accept money that's designated for South Carolina. So
always nice to have you on the set, Wes. You always bring it, and thank you, Mia. This is the second time we've had you on. We are delighted to have you in the studio, and we'll invite you again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Certainly. Coming up, we're going to switch gears and tell everybody, Brian, about an upcoming event that talks about 100 years of scouting. Lee Morris is in the house. You guys stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
We spent the day talking about the governor's approval rating and issues related to that. Switching gears now to have our good friend Lee Morris. Our community segment with our good friend Lee Morris from the Girl Scouts. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, we've got a big event coming up on the 23rd at the State House, 9:30 in the morning. We are going to launch the Year of the Girl. Talk about that.
Well, this is Girl Scouting's 100th anniversary, and after 100 years of being all about building girls' courage and confidence and character, we've decided that the Year of the Girl is going to be what we do this year, and really ask the country to come together around female leadership development.
Well, it's really, you guys are the originators of character development among young people, and sometimes people don't really think about scouting in that way, but that's what it is. Were you a Boy Scout?
I was, yeah. I was a Boy Scout.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? And I was a Girl Scout. I was
a long
Brownie.
time ago.
Yeah. but I think those things really go a long way, and we want people to come out and be with us at the State House, and we're reclaiming old Girl Scouts as well. We want folks to come on out and stand with us, don't we, Lee?
We sure do. This is a real big occasion to help spread the word that it's the Year of the Girl, and it's time for girls to be front and center, and we need to get behind girls and their leadership.
There's a To Get Her There pledge. Talk to us about the To Get Her There campaign.
Well, the To Get Her There campaign is really based on a couple facts. One is that even though 50% of managerial and professional positions are held by women, only 18% of all sectors, the top leadership is women. So while we've made it as far as competency and skills, we haven't made it fully into the leadership arena yet, and it's time for that to change. We really believe that once we have gender-balanced leadership decisions being made, our society is going to be a much better place.
Why do you think we haven't gotten to a better place yet in terms of evening that out? What do you think is behind that?
Ah, boy, there's a lot of factors, I think.
Yeah.
I think we as women have need to practice leadership development more, and I think that historically there's more men in leadership roles and not quite really willing to relinquish as much of those opportunities.
A lot of ground to make up is what we've got, but we're working at it, and I'm proud to be a part of the Girl Scouts, and want to see as many people out there with us on the 23rd at 9:30 at the State House. We'll have lots of girls and lots of folks at the State House to help us launch that.
That's
and thank
good.
you so very much, Lee, for joining us today in this important segment. We hope we have a lot of girls there with us on that day.
Yeah,
It's been a good
so.
show.
It has been a good show. We've covered a lot of bases today.
A lot of bases today. And what we want people to get from that is to continue to pay attention to what's going on out there in terms of the electorate. And so I guess that's it for this edition of
And one more reminder on the date of that event.
Oh, we can remind her, yes.
Thursday, February 23rd at 9:30 in the morning in the lobby of the State House.
And so people can just come in the front door and just join us there. They'll notice us because we'll be the ones wearing all the uniforms. and holding the daisies, right? And holding the daisies, and that's just a really, really good thing. And I just can't say enough about what it does for young women to see the character development over the years. And I'm really looking forward to hearing the speakers, particularly that one young lady, Candace, who has done so well as a college student. So thank you so much, Lee.
The success stories, I think, are what sells the point of how good this can be to build character in young people. And is scouting still, you're able to recruit as many as maybe you once were? Is it at a high point? Is it good in terms of your overall numbers?
We really would love to have more people get involved.
Yeah.
And then we would be able to serve more girls in a lot of different age groups too. Because girls really need a supportive environment to practice and test their skills and be inspired by others who have gone before them.
Sure. Now, I'd imagine the younger you start, the better, right? Absolutely.
Well, I'm so glad we had that extra bit of time to get an opportunity to say a little bit more. It's really great. Thank you, Brian. I guess that's it. Now, for this edition of On Point on Watchbox, we do want people to send us their comments and their suggestions to onpointwithcynthia.com and follow us on Twitter at Radio Talk, and we want to continue to bring people these kinds of events.
Sure, and share your comments with us because we'll share them right here on the air too.
Absolutely.
And very often folks have been pretty fired up about some of the issues we talk about.
And
so
I like that.
Good conversation.
I like that. So you guys continue to watch, continue to give us your comments, and let us know what you think, and we like putting you as part of our show. Remember, we believe when you're informed, you're empowered. And once empowered, you are on point. We're going to see you guys next week.